If you've been putting new foods on your child's plate for months, maybe even years, maybe you've been told just keep exposing them. If you've tried the no pressure rule, the 15-time rule, the reward chart, nothing is changing. This episode is going to be for you because food exposure does work, but only if it's going to match your child's nervous system stage. And what I see over and over again is parents doing an amazing job with exposure, but they're applying it to the wrong level, right? They're not understanding their child's readiness level. And when exposure doesn't match readiness, it's not going to build comfort. It's going to actually build a defense. So today I'm going to walk you through the 3 nervous system stages that determine whether exposure helps or quietly backfires. So I don't want you to piece this together alone, but I want you to understand why guessing might have actually kept you stuck and why stage match support can change a lot. So first, let's dive in. You probably have been given very oversimplified advice reduced to one sentence. Just keep offering it. And that advice might work, but only for a very specific type of child, because exposure is not behavioral, it's neurological. If your child's nervous system perceives food as unpredictable, unsafe, repetition alone is not creating comfort with the food, it's reinforcing alarm bells in their head. So the question isn't, how many times have you offered that broccoli? The real question is, what stage is your child operating in? Because readiness is going to determine if it's going to be successful or not. Okay, it's going to really determine everything. So let's go into the 3 nervous system stages. Okay, we're talking about the underlying state they're functioning from at the table. All right, so there's 3 primary ones. That fearful nervous system, right? So this is the child who is going to avoid the table, probably not even sit there, melts down when something new appears, gags easily, needs a lot of very strong predictability, and has rigidness around routines. Now, I'm going to clarify. Exposure does not automatically mean asking for a bite, right? Exposure might be just having the new food on a plate or just on the table. But for a fearful child, even the quiet presence of a new food, if not introduced strategically, can activate their defense mechanisms, because what matters isn't necessarily what you're doing, it's how their nervous system is interpreting that food. So if their system reads, this is unpredictable, they're going to make me eat this doesn't feel safe, I don't know what's going to happen next, then even passive exposure can feel threatening. At this stage, exposure has to prioritize regulation. It has to consider how close it is, how predictable the routines are, timing, their emotional safety. And the line between safety building and accidental pressure is quite thin. So this is what a lot of families are missing. It's not because they are careless, but they were never taught how to assess this readiness factor first. Okay? Then we also have kids who are more in the stuck system, right? They might sit at the table and tolerate some new foods nearby, might even smell or touch something, but they're the ones that are going to say, I don't like it, before even giving it a shot. They're definitely refusing bites, but maybe they don't completely melt down. They're not totally in panic, but they're also not fully ready for consumption pressure either. And this is where parents often misinterpret proximity to readiness. They think, well, we're close. Let's just see if they'll take a bite. But if their system hasn't built a full sensory picture of what's going to happen, if they don't have motor confidence, if they're not flexible, it's just going to create resistance. So this stage requires precision, skill building, confidence building, careful observation of their cues. It's not about increasing pressure at this time. It's more about increasing their competence. And competence is going to reduce their defense. Okay, now let's move into the curious nervous system. This is the child who occasionally tries new foods, takes small bites, shows interest sometimes, has a limited variety, but not an intense fear, right? So we do see these kids as well in our program. Now repetition begins to matter. But even here, exposure alone is not going to necessarily solve everything. If chewing skills are weak, if sensory processing is out of balance, if gut discomfort exists, if rigidity is mindset driven, progress is probably going to plateau because exposure is one piece of a larger system. Exposure can fail if you don't know their stage, if you move to consumption before they're regulated, if you interpret their defense as defiance, if you increase repetition without increasing their readiness level. And most of the time, our families are just guessing. They're trying, they're testing things out, and sometimes even really consistent, but they're missing the sequence that goes in. And feeding is really a problem of sequencing. When exposure is matched to the nervous system stage, progress actually starts to build and feel steady. When it's mismatched, that's when it gets really tiring and exhausting, right? Because they need support. Understanding the stages is helpful, but applying them correctly can be a little nuanced. Inside our program, we don't start with try this food, we're working on this food. We start with assessment. We determine where is this problem coming from? Is it fear? Is it sensory processing, oral motor skill, gut discomfort, mindset, rigidity? Because exposure without figuring out the whys becomes trial and error. And trial and error can easily erode trust with the child. But when we match the strategy to their stage and the stage to the different pillars, progress is not random. It's very predictable. And this is what changes everything. So if you don't know what nervous system stage your child is in, that is absolutely going to be your first step. So if you haven't already, go to thepickeaterstest.com, take our quiz. It will tell you whether your child is operating from fearful, stuck, or curious nervous system stages. And that clarity alone can shift how you approach meal times. Now, if you already know your child is fearful or stuck, maybe you just listened to my description and you were able to easily pinpoint your child. Let me ask you something. Why are you still trying to solve this problem by yourself? Fearful and stuck kids do not need more tips. They need structured sequencing, clinical precision, and real-time adjustments. So what I mean by a real-time adjustment is we can't do something for a week, 2 weeks, and it's just not working. We might need to adjust in real time and tweak our strategies because they're not responding to that for whatever reason. But this is exactly why I built the roadmap. That's what it is entirely for. So if you have not taken the quiz, go to thepickeaterstest.com. If you already know your child's stage and you know they're fearful or stuck, go straight to the roadmap link in the show notes. Just skip the trial and error. It's wasting your time and theirs and just stressing everybody out because exposure doesn't necessarily have to fail. It's just when you misapply it to the wrong timing and the wrong nervous system, that's when things can go wrong. So we want to shift from unpredictable to inevitable progress. And when you know which stage your child is in, then you could apply the right tiers to their exposure. There's a lot of different ways that we can expose kids to food. It's not just putting the food on their plate. A lot of people think that's what exposure is, but there's actually several steps that come before that are what I would say are passive exposure. Things like you modeling eating. It could be being in the kitchen during meal prep. It could even be watching other people eat at a restaurant. It could be watching food being prepared on television. There are a lot of passive ways to get kids involved with food and exposed to food in a very positive way before moving to the food is right in front of you on your plate, ready to eat. That's actually a much later step in the progression of food exposure. So that when you put food on their plate, and that implies, even sometimes if you say you don't have to eat it, which is great, but sometimes that actually implies to the child that they're expected to eat it. And that, again, is some hidden pressure that sometimes parents might be unknowingly putting on their kids. So a lot of times parents say, I actually thought I had taken off all the pressure. And then I watched your lesson on hidden pressures and I realized I was doing 6 or 7 of those things. Again, if you know that this is your child and you're like, I feel like we might have been doing things out of order, I don't want you to beat yourself up. I think you are all amazing, amazing parents. No one would ever spend their days and times listening to feeding podcasts or looking up how to help their child with food if you didn't truly care about their well being and want the absolute best for them. So I know you're all trying your absolute best. I never want any parent to beat themselves up. We're always super parent supportive here. And we just want to show you that there's an easier way to sequence things that might make your life easier and will lead to more progress and happiness when it comes to your child and food. So if we haven't already met, we can't wait to see you on the inside of our program where we can take you step by step and show you exactly what to work on first, second, third, and exactly when to pull the trigger on some of these strategies because they're all good strategies. I know a lot of the great things to do. You might just not know the right order to do them in for your child. Again, visit us at thepickeaterstest.com or our website, foodologyfeedingtherapy.com. And we have lots of great resources there for you as well. We will see you in the next episode. Have a great 2 weeks.